Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you today on a bright, sunny day that is definitely teetering towards the colder end of the spectrum. I'm not used to saying that, not used to being that way. It's been shirt-sleeve warm all winter long here in Boston. But today there's a nip in the air. One old friend of mine used to say there's a nipple in the air. And it's supposed to get much colder for at least a day. We're supposed to have actual winter cold. No winter weather, bright skies, no hint of moisture of any kind, no sleet, no snow, but a cold day. Woo. Amazing. We'll see. I don't think I'll stray far from the warmth of the bean-haunted bed on such a day, but we've got some mail here, so I thought we'd go through that. We have a couple of boxes to end things off, and one of the boxes is setting off me spider sense. I have a feeling that one of you has violated rule number 1 when it comes to this channel, which is don't send me a book. I have a feeling that's the case. We'll just have to see. What have we got here? Okay, this is on sale in April. This is by Peter Cousins, who's really, really good. This is called A Brutal Reckoning: Andrew Jackson, the Creek Indians, and the Epic War for the American South. Really, really good. Well-designed contrast there between the boring sepia-tone photograph and something else, making it distinctive. The only problem with the cover design is that there should be a 1,000-year moratorium on putting the word reckoning in the title of your book. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. You should be forbidden to do it. But what have we got here? The Creek War was one of the most tragic episodes in American history, leading to the greatest loss of Native American life on what is now U.S. soil. What began as a vicious internal conflict among the Creek Indians metastasized like a cancer. The ensuing Creek War of 1813-1814 shattered Native American control of the Deep South and led to the infamous Trail of Tears, in which the government forcibly removed the southeastern Indians from their homeland. The war also gave Andrew Jackson his first combat leadership role, and his newfound popularity after defeating the Creeks would set him on the path to the White House. In this book, the author vividly captures the young Jackson, describing a brilliant but harsh military commander with unbridled ambition, a taste for cruelty, and a fraught sense of honor and duty. Jackson would not have won the war without the help of Native American allies, yet he denied their role and even insisted on their displacement, together with all the Indians of the American South in the Trail of Tears. A conflict involving not only white Americans and Native Americans, but also the British and the Spanish, the Creek War opened the Deep South to the Cotton Kingdom, setting a stage for the American Civil War to come. Fantastic. Haven't read a dedicated book on the Creek War ever. It shows up in detailed military history of the United States, but how wonderful that it gets its own volume here, and that it gets its own volume at the hands of a great historian. Peter Cousins is a historian who not only handles his subject well, but writes a heck of a narrative. This will be a brutal narrative. The only quibble that I would have with the Dust Jacket, aside from the fact that Reckoning should not be in the title of this or any other book, the only quibbling that I have is, where was it? Here? The most tragic episodes in American history leading to the greatest loss of Native American life on what is now U.S. soil. According to dozens of treaties that are not invalid, they have never been rejected, it's not U.S. soil. Just because the U.S. government had the guns, the manpower, and the military might to just do what it wanted doesn't mean it didn't sign treaties saying this is your land in perpetuity. Those treaties have not been abrogated. They are still in effect. I know they'll never be honored, but it's a minor quibble. I'm sure that Cousins will deal with it in the course of this book. So we're great. We're off to a great start. That's fantastic. Did not know that was coming. So let's hope. Let's hope that this whole mail haul is equally wonderful, without any of the nervousness that I sometimes experience with mail hauls. Let's just hope that we can dispense with that nervousness completely. Just deal with books. Oh, fantastic! All right, well, we're off to a fine start, because this is the finished copy of the book we've already seen. I've already read it. It is, again, grim reading, but brilliant. This comes out in late March. This is The Undertow: Scenes from a Slow Civil War by Jeff Charlotte. And let's go over this again for those of you who maybe missed it the first time, since I've been reliably informed that quite a few of you do not watch all of my videos. That you pick and choose which videos of mine you will watch. spitting in the face of the long hours of editing and production value that goes into each one of these videos. Let's see. In this book, the veteran journalist Jeff Sharlet reckons with the tumultuous changes of the last 10 years, a decade that will likely be remembered as one of the new century's most significant. That's wishful thinking. An unmatched guide to the religious dimensions of American politics, Sharlet journeys... Okay, Sharlet is not an unmatched guide. That is called a dangler. You can fix that in 2 seconds. Charlotte's book. it fixes it in 2 seconds. Journeys into the corners of our national psyche where others fear to tread. Actually, that's not true. You can't swing a dead cat in those undercurrents of American society without hitting an embedded reporter who wants to write a book just like this. But I'm only carping. The book was wonderful, and that is a police. This is a police evidence display of a deadly knife. It looks very suspiciously like something that's sitting on my nightstand. Let's see here. Across the country, men of God, in quotes, glorify materialism, a gluttony of the soul, while citing scripture and preparing for civil war, a firestorm they long for as an absolution and exaltation. Lies, greed, and glorification of war boom through microphones at hipster megachurches that once upon a time might have preached peace and understanding. This comes out in the 3rd week of March, and you should read it. You should definitely read it. First of all, it's no great trial to read. Like Peter Cousins, this guy can really write. But it's also vitally important, especially in light of the fact that the contention in the pub sheet that the first 21 years of the 21st century were the most significant in American history. These 21 years, these last 6 years, these last 10 years, they don't hold a candle to what's coming. They don't hold a candle. They are an obvious dress rehearsal for what's coming. If you just have to look at the history of broken countries to know what's coming. What's coming is not an isolated, or actually 6 isolated instances of minor violence on one day, January 6th. What's coming is much worse than that. It's far bigger and more systematic. And it could have been prevented. At every step of the way, it could have been prevented. The United States government could have arrested the insurrectionists instead of electing 70 of them to Congress. And the 70 of them that are elected to Congress hate the country. That's why they were part of an insurrection to overthrow the government. They hate the country, and they're going to show that by tanking the country's credit rating, which sounds wonky, but it will turn the United States into a second-rate country overnight and drastically affect your life. It's the only reason that it's happening is because they're in Congress instead of in jail. And when you look at previous examples of healthy countries that then broke, first of all, they don't heal again. But then you can follow the steps of the further fracturing. And those steps are much worse than what we've seen so far. And they happen at roughly the same pace whenever they do. It's fairly easy to predict that the next major step will be in the late 20s. And then in the 30s will be the catastrophe. In the 30s will be the time when the major breaks all happen. And when the America that anyone has known for 250 years irredeemably changes. Just completely, name still the same, but otherwise irredeemably changed. And what follows from there is fairly predictable as well. These things, as I've mentioned on this channel before, always take the same forms. If you don't learn, if you look at history and say, well, here's what we need to do, but we're not going to do it because technically we don't think we should, or we should believe in, the good of mankind, or whataboutism, or we're going to feed the media. If you think that, and instead of thinking about simple self-preservation, then that you have ensured what's going to happen to you. But aside from that that one brief aside in the pub sheet, The Undertow is a terrific book. Dark, but terrific. We have this next one here. It's mite heavy. Just a mite heavy. What is this? It's such a weighty tome. Oh, okay. We saw this already. But this is the finished copy. Oh, no wonder it's so heavy. It's full of artwork. Oh, didn't see that coming. Okay, I don't appear to have a pub sheet for this thing. It's kind of weird. Why would you put something like this in there? This is the reopening of the Western mind, the resurgence of intellectual life from the end of antiquity to the dawn of the Enlightenment by Charles Freeman. Huge thing. And you can't tell on the video, but it's very heavy because it's completely full of color artwork, which really you have to increase your paper stock in order to support that. It's not just, it doesn't have just an inset of photos. It's all throughout. And that makes it heavy. That also makes it expensive. This hardcover is $50. But what have we got here? A monumental and exhilarating history of European thought from the end of antiquity to the beginning of the Enlightenment. This is the author who wrote The Closing of the Western Mind. In this wide-ranging history, Freeman traces the immense intellectual development that culminated in the Enlightenment, from political ideology to philosophy and theology, as well as the fine arts and literature. And the fine arts are obviously going to be heavily represented here. This is far more visual than I would, originally thought. So that's that. That's great. Good to know that. I really wasn't going to be able to get much use out of the... I got an unbound galley of this, oversized. If you've been watching all of my mail hauls, I don't know why you would do that, but if you did, you would have seen it. And it really... I mean, I appreciate the gesture, and I tried my hardest, but there really wasn't any way for me to get any use out of that thing. I would have torn pages out of it right away. So it's good to have the book to get to work on it, because it is a February release, if I remember correctly. I think it's a February release. I think it comes out next week. But anyway, now we have the boxes, one of which is small and does not set off my spider sense. One of which I think is just from a publisher. I think the second one might not be. I think the second one might be from a civilian. You. And you are not allowed to send me boxes of books. But let's see what this first one is. Get rid of the invoice. Okay, this is by Grace Lavery, and it's called Pleasure and Efficacy. So this comes out in May. I got an invoice, but no pub sheet. But we'll just read the this will be the cover copy here. In this book, Grace Lavery investigates gender transition as it has been experienced and represented in the modern period. Considering examples that range from the novels of George Eliot — there is no gender transition in the novels of George Eliot — to the psychoanalytic practice of Sigmund Freud, to marriage manuals by Marie Stopes, Lavery explores the skepticism found in such works about whether it is truly possible to change one's sex. It isn't possible to change your sex. It isn't possible to do. You can change the way you present yourself to the outside world, and the minute you do that and express your preference as to how you want me to address you and how you want me to talk about you, I will certainly do that. That's a monumental undertaking, a monumental personal choice on your part. It deserves as much respect as, well, any other monumental personal choice that somebody makes, but it doesn't change reality. It doesn't change your chromosomes. and that, simply pointing that out, that female human organisms do exist. They aren't just a figment of the imagination. They aren't just a decision that somebody makes one day. Simply pointing that out does not make me a TERF. It does not warrant any kind of an insult to point out that biological organisms have chromosomally determined sexes. It's amazing to me that in the 21st century, no matter what, it does signify that in the 21st century, and that just amazes me. That is just so cultish. But anyway, I'm going to try to get through this. This is clearly a book I should not be showing on a mail haul. This ambivalence, she argues, has contributed to both anti-trans oppression and the civil rights claim with which trans people have confronted it. There is no ambivalence. You cannot change your biological sex. If you think you can, you have been deluded by a cult. You cannot change your biological sex. You can change the way you present to the world, and therefore how the world should treat you. There is no ambivalence on the subject of whether or not you can magically change the chromosomal set you were born with. There's no ambivalence about that. Anyway, the author examines what she terms trans pragmatism, the ways that trans people resist medicalization and pathologization to achieve pleasure and freedom. Trans pragmatism, she writes, affirms that transition works, that it is possible, and that it happens. Okay, we know that it works. We know that it's possible. We know that it happens. We know that it happens. I guess I'll have to find out what trans pragmatism means. I would imagine, since trans identity is not popularly accepted today, and unfortunately, thanks to the fervid imagination of the far right, the alt-right in this country, which controls the minds of 170 million people, it's a fairly straightforward process. I would rather be a woman in the world than a man. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the steps necessary, whatever I can afford, whatever seems reasonable, and I'm hoping that you will afford me the courtesy of agreeing with my decision. That fairly straightforward choice, that fairly straightforward process, has been subject to a huge amount of demonization in the 21st century by a failing alt-right system that needs enemies. So maybe, in that world, trans pragmatism is watch out for yourself. Do what you can to achieve the happiness that you think you will get from this decision, but watch out for yourself. Pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to your location and the people in your life. But maybe this author means something different about trans pragmatism. I have to admit, I'm intrigued already. Although every step of the way that we read in the summary we're in danger of me deleting this video, and I don't want to. With Eliot and Freud as guiding geniuses of the book. Okay, Freud thought it was a pathology, and it doesn't exist in Eliot, so those are bad guides. Lavery covers a vast range of modern culture: poetry, prose, criticism, philosophy, fiction, cinema, pop music, pornography, and memes. I like that. Since transition takes people out of one genre and deposits them in another, she suggests, it should be no surprise that a cultural history of gender transition will also provide, by accident, a history of gender transition. Considering the concept of technique and its associations with feminine craftiness, as opposed to masculine freedom, Lavery argues that techniques of giving and receiving pleasure are essential to the possibilities of trans feminist thriving, even as they are suppressed by patriarchal and anti-trans feminist philosophies. Techniques of giving and receiving pleasure. I'm not sure I know what that means, or rather, I'm pretty sure I do know what that means. Contesting claims for the impossibility of transition. It's not impossible. It's not possible to change your biological sex. It's certainly possible for you to transition. The only reason that I suspect, the only reason that this book is going to invoke the specter of impossibility is because this author is going to say it is possible, that trans women are women, meaning the unspoken part being biologically, chromosomally women. They aren't. They never will be. It's not possible to do that. That is immaterial to rights, to freedoms, to acceptance. And the fact that you need to insist, that is a central cult phenomenon, that here's an aspect of reality, and if you're part of this cult, you'll deny it. You'll deny actual, incontrovertible reality to be part of this cult. Trump won. The banner that says Trump won. If you're part of this cult, you will deny reality to be part of this cult. That's the only way I can think of why this author would raise a specter of impossibility of transition. It is certainly possible to transition. People do it every day. And I would argue, mostly are met with acceptance. In their families, in their workplaces, in society. Mostly they're met with acceptance. Contesting claims for the impossibility of transition, she offers a counter-history of tricks and techniques passed on by women to women that comprises a body of knowledge written in the margins of history. Okay, that sounds really good. I mean, this description has had me all over the map here. It sounds like this is going to be a racingly intelligent book. That could be fun. I'm amazed that we got through the description of this book, Pleasure and Efficacy, without me having to delete this video. I'm amazed and pleased at that fact. Phew. I can't wait. Can't wait to see. That sounds really thought-provoking. That's just the pub sheet. Imagine how good the book is. And then we have the suspect box, which is big and heavy and comes from the UK. And it's taped to a fare thee well. Am I going to be able to open this on camera? Am I going to be able to? How about if we call in a little help? Let's see. How about we call in a little help? And see if that helps me. I have a feeling that this was sent by one of you to me as a gift, and you are not allowed to do that. You are not allowed to send me books. What have we got here? Big, thick thing. All right, let's put you away. Important thing to do, put the knife away before you go on to something else. Okay, we have paper. Now we have a box, a repurposed Sony box. I need my friend again. Open the repurposed Sony box. Okay, put the knife away again. We have internally packed things. Good Lord, somebody went to a lot of trouble here to break rule number 1. What is this first internally packed things? One of you, if you're watching, thank you very much for going to this much bother, but you shouldn't have done it. What is the first thing that we have here? Oh my, this is lovely. Oh my, this is Sleep No More. 6 short stories by P.D. James. How lovely. It's got a plastic covering on it and everything. Smell that, baby. Smell that, huh? Yeah, I know. I smelled the same thing. It wasn't just a human who was around this. Okay. All right. Well, what is the next heavily bound thing here? Oh my God. I'm losing. Oh my God. Sorry. There's a number of individually packed things in here. I don't want to take a knife to individually pack things since they're books. I don't want to rip anything. What is this first one? Oh my. Oh, don't tell me. Don't tell me. One of you actually, oh my God, if this is true, I'm going to be so amazed. This is the UK hardcover Faber and Faber edition of Death and Holy Orders by P.D. James. I mentioned in a library tour probably 2 weeks ago that I know exactly what I want for P.D. James. I love this author. I love her work. It's infinitely revisitable. And I've seen it all over. I've sold it in bookstores. I've seen it all over at the Brattle. But I mentioned in a library tour that I know what I want. I want UK hardcover editions of this author's works. And that's what this is, and that's what the other one was. That is starting to make me suspicious. Is that what these are all going to be? I knew already that that's what I wanted for P.D. James, and I also had the sort of melancholy pleasure of writing her obituary, which is kind of weird. You love an author, but that's the last way you want to write about them. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh my God. Whoever you are, I will scour the box for identification and try to thank you. This is A Certain Justice by P.D. James in the Faber and Faber hardcover. How wonderful. Look at that. Look at how lovely that is. Oh my God. I am just so compulsively going to reread these things. And then we have one more to finish. One more to finish up the box. No note in the box. Let's do this. I think it's fairly obvious this is going to be a hardcover P.D. James novel. There's one P.D. James novel in a UK hardcover that I want more than any other. But these are amazing. To get all of these are utterly amazing. This is the one that I wanted more than any other with a plastic covering on it. This is Original Sin in a Faber and Faber UK hardcover. How incredible, you people. I swear. You are so amazing. This is exactly what I was looking for. This, I was just waiting, saying the Brattle will provide. Sooner or later, I will see this at the Brattle. And I don't have to think that anymore. Because I have a whole lot of these things. Look at this. That's incredible. A whole lot of P.D. James in UK hardcovers. That is amazing. All right, well, I've started the C period. Might as well go along there. One of you, above and beyond, it must have cost a mint to do this, to find them in perfect condition, cover them with plastic, which I'm assuming you did yourself, and then pay, intercontinental postage. Incredible. I have the best imaginary booktube friends anywhere on the platform. Then we have Pleasure and Efficacy of pen names, cover versions, and other trans techniques. George Eliot's pen name was not a trans technique. But anyway, I'm going to argue with the book, especially since I think I'm going to like it. Then The Reopening of the Western Mind, big, beautifully illustrated hardcover. We have The Undertow by Jeff Charlotte in its finished copy. And finally, we have a book on the Creek War a brutal reckoning. So there you go. Was not expecting any of that, but there you go. Fantastic. I'm still stunned. What an unbelievably generous gift. If I don't find your contact information and you are watching this video, feel free to sing out in my email so that I can thank you properly. Amazing. All right, well, one huge ongoing Brattle hunt is over. I don't need to do that. I have what I want. Now all I have to do is figure out how to fit room for them. Rearrange the shelves. That's what I'm doing anyway for the library tour in this room. Amazing. Just amazing. So I'm going to wrap this up while I'm ahead, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.